Welcome to Create Love with Carrie Margaret. I'm here to help you find and create the story of you, your authenticity, your love, your life. We live in a shifting culture where men and women don't know how to act, to find authentic self-expression, connection, and love. Let's remove the fear around expressing femininity and masculinity and come to a greater understanding of each other and build connection based on authenticity and attraction and being a team instead of adversaries. There's room for every type of life story and love story. You get to be the hero of your own story. Let me walk with you to create understanding, face fears, deconstruct attraction and passion, heal old wounds and grief, and show up as the person, lover, partner, and friend that you are here to be. Hi, this is Carrie Margaret from Create Love, and today I wanted to do a solo episode about authenticity, vulnerability, and magnetism. The first 3 episodes of Create Love, and the last 3 episodes have been with Duran Johnson, Tyler Rowling, and Greg Moran, all around different themes of authenticity and vulnerability. With Duran Johnson, we talked about authentically not only stepping into your confidence as a man, but authentically building and becoming the man that you want to be on the world, which is the same for women. Opening yourself up to the possibility that life is not only a discovery of who you are in terms of passions and interests, it's also a creation. And that was really exciting to get into that first episode. And with Tyler Rowling, we got into vulnerability and how some of the things that feel like these core wounds or parts of ourselves that we want to hide are actually parts of ourselves that we get to crack open these codes and to stepping into being more of ourselves and giving other people the permission to do it as well, and just kind of accepting in vulnerability the uncertainty and the chaos and of life and making it an adventure. And with Greg Moran, we talked about authenticity and breath and healing and really, finding your center through your body. So there's so much goodness in all of those episodes to go back to. And I wanted to continue on this theme today of authenticity and vulnerability. And we're going to be stepping into some conversations related to attraction and sensuality. And one of the things that is the most attractive, just universally, whether you're a man or a woman or whatever your sexuality is really being your full self. Having the confidence to go out and authentically be yourself without any masks, creates a level of both like magnetism. It's very, very attractive. It attracts. And then it repels at the same time. It's polarizing. It will repel people that aren't going to align with who you are authentically. And that's exactly what you want. You want to attract the contacts and friends and lovers and partner. That was in no particular order. That is going to be the most turned on by the authentic you. And the more that you step into yourself and are in the process of always discovering things that you want and want to explore about life and the curiosity and uncovering those parts of yourself, and those also creating the parts of yourself, you just are an attractive and magnetic person as time goes on. One of the key things in eroticism itself is this spark of life, this aliveness, that comes when somebody just really fully in their own skin and really owning who they are in a way that's just confident in them, right? So it's sometimes words like authenticity and vulnerability can feel like almost like buzzwords, and can start to like lose some meaning there. And it's really just like letting go of any kind of mask or thinking about what other people's opinions of you. I have a mentor who says that other people's opinions of us are none of our business. Doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter how close they are. It really is none of our business. Our business is being alive in this body and having this experience and connecting as ourselves. Like when we move from one of the codes that I talked about in the interview with Tyler Rowling was about like cracking my own code related to perfectionism. There is a common code in culture where women want to be, perfect, to be the perfect woman. Now, lots of women talk about this. This comes up in all different areas, whether that's like showing you're the perfect woman by being super busy or being like the great friend or, the great mom and, taking all of these roles and trying to do them like in a way that's like feels like ultra perfect or having the perfect home. This is a thing that comes up culturally, especially in the United States. This myth of like being able to step into being like a perfect woman in any way. That is super damaging because what it does is it teaches us to put on different masks and to hide sides of ourselves and not to sort of show the messy truth and unfolding and chaos within life. Because no matter who you are on this planet, you are not going to be good at everything. There are going to be some areas that are going to be inherent, beautiful strengths and gifts, and other areas that are going to feel more messy. Now, that could look like somebody who is, an amazing connector and not as good at like organization, or somebody who's really great at organization, maybe a little bit more socially awkward. Like this can come out in all different ways, but none of us are amazing at everything, nor should we expect ourselves to be. So the more that we kind of embrace this authentic truth of ours, the things that feel good to us, our gifts, and then also the areas that feel like the vulnerabilities or the weaknesses because they're the areas that are a little bit messier. Not only the more can we turn around and sort of surrender to life and really enjoy life, enjoy this life that we're living and creating, we also become so much more magnetic to the people that we want in our lives, the people that we'd really like to create relationships with and create love with. And so that leads us into the next theme that we're going to be moving into, is related to attraction. And one of the most perfect ways to step into attraction, whether you're attracting an apartment or whether you're attracting in a partner, or you want to keep that spark alive in your relationship over the long term, or if you're dating and you want to keep the spark going on in a shorter time dating, if you're in a phase of exploration, whatever phase you're in, one of the ways to really keep that attraction alive is by being in your authentic expression and sharing your vulnerabilities. One of the things that we didn't get into a lot, and we will get into so many different themes here that I'm so excited to share with you. One of the things that we didn't get into a lot is what it really means to show confidence, when being vulnerable, and A great example of that is a beautiful way to show vulnerability is to confidently show that you're interested in somebody, right? That's a beautiful way to show vulnerability. A way that's a little bit less attractive to show vulnerability is if you're in a romantic partnership and you're like talking about all of these problems or different problems you had with people that you dated in the past. Lots of people like to use the word exes. I don't like to use the word ex because I don't believe that people should be X out of our lives. I think that people become part of our history and should be honored as such. And that is a pretty universally unattractive way to show vulnerability. That tends to be a way that I've seen that men sometimes will show a little bit more vulnerability that way, in talking about what a disaster a certain relationship was, or problems, or talking about exes. And I don't date women. I'm sure that women do some of that as well. I do coach women, and I tend to see women's vulnerability show up in what is referred to in the human experience as the early attachment bias. So women tend to be a little bit more early attachers in sensual relationships, and some of the sort of slips and like less attractive shows of vulnerability sometimes really have to do with women not respecting their own boundaries and their own needs about timing in terms of intimacy, and then not being able to handle where a relationship or a connection is in terms of intimacy, and sort of going into like freak out moments. That seems to be a pretty common thing in dating, like, when for women. So when women are in the exploration and they're really listening to their own boundaries and their own needs for what feels good for them to share in intimacy, and they're really clear about with the person that they're dating, then a lot of times they don't get into this as much of this sense of like, oh, all of a sudden we shared intimacy really quickly, whether that's first date, second date, third date. And if you want to share intimacy in the first minute of meeting somebody, you do you. I'm just talking right here about the early attachment bias. So when that comes up with vulnerability with women, is sometimes they will realize that they are becoming attached and having stronger feelings for somebody where there's not as much of this established relationship, because all men and women are different, and men in general don't have as much of that early attachment bias, so they can separate the physical intimacy a little bit more than the emotional experience. That's why courting has been around for such a long time, even though it's not in huge favor right now. There is a big favor in terms of very casual types of situations, and the beauty of more old-fashioned courtship is it allows men and women to go in the same rhythm in terms of early attachment bias. So that is, I would say, one of the biggest areas where women show up in a way that's less attractive in terms of vulnerability, when they can't handle the level of intimacy, and then their vulnerability comes out with like anger or jealousy or freak out or passive aggressive tendencies, or not really being as calm and in their own space related to what they actually want with somebody. And with men, there tends to be, the error in terms of vulnerability sometimes has a bit more to do with oversharing in terms of like past relationship struggles, or using a woman in their life a little bit more like a therapist, rather than having this kind of network of people that they can talk to about all things, right? So if there's just one person in your life that you can talk to about these vulnerable things and then start flooding them, that is sort of a bigger area where men tend to make that, I wouldn't say mistake, it's just all learning, but tend to have more of a struggle with vulnerability. And all of these things we will be talking about and getting into and exploring throughout the podcast, because we're all these really messy and perfect humans, and we all have a desire to connect, to have meaningful connections, to share all sides of ourselves, whatever intimacy means to us and whatever we're looking for and whatever stage of exploration or partnership we're at. We'll have desires to connect more, and we get to be on this journey together, and let's just let go of shame and saying that there's one right or wrong way to do anything. I just want to be in the conversation with you and be a friend to, you don't have to do it alone, and you can go out and authentically express yourself, be vulnerable to the world, live a really full life, call in people that are aligned to you, and create, a life and create love that is very meaningful to you. So in our next podcast, we're going to be getting into the theme of attraction. So fun. And I'm so happy to be on this adventure with you and hold your hand in the process as a friend. Thanks for listening.